And then I got on my horse, and I came back to this place. And it was torn up. It was torn up. My house was just spoiled. The British had done that. They'd done it just to be mean. But most of my servants had run off or been taken off. There were a few who were left. And my animals were gone. I didn't have much of anything. But you know,
we've had so far. Scott Withrow, when I mention the presenter's name, if you pop up so people can see you. Scott Withrow started it off by talking about marrying with the Cherokees. And Scott probably is the most knowledgeable person around about talking about the Cherokees and the Red Bones and so forth in the western part of the state. Then the horse folks, and we had a group of them, made a presentation here, and then had the marsh tacky horses out at the Marshall Silver Lake Plantation. We had a wonderful time out there, as we always do. The marsh tacky horse, we're hoping becomes the state horse. They tried 2 years in a row to get it through the state legislature, and for some reason there's no money involved, so they can't pass it. The governor can't veto it. This morning we started out with Eric Nason as Peter Ory. And then a young man who's a doctoral candidate at Duke University up in North Carolina. You heard of the Methodist Flats up there and all that. Incidentally, for those that know I sort of follow that team, they didn't lose today. They didn't play. Anyway, Dan Tortora came down and he talked about religion and the revolution, which was rather interesting. And then Dr. Christine Swager, once again, dazzled everybody with their presentation, this time about Francis Marion after the battle, the battle at Utah Springs.
Where is she?
She won't stand up. She's bashful. And then the ladies on the Murals Committee prepared the lunch for us today, and it was fantastic. Thank you all so much. Then we had a visit from Thomas Sumter, i.e. Dr. Tom Powers from USC Sumter. And actually put Francis Marion as a cleanup hitter for the whole show, and that was Dr. Joe Stoops. Who else? Before we get on any further, we're planning an event that we're really enthused about. We have all the school districts enthused about it. As you know, the people on the Murals Committee have been dressing like this, taking our stuff to the 3rd grade students across the county and to some of the 7th graders. But talking to the kids for just 30 or 45 minutes really doesn't make the impression we want. We saw last year, Carol and I were up on the near Little Switzerland and at Gillespie Gap area at the Museum in North Carolina, and saw this program they had where they did an encampment, and they had all these different reenactors at different stations making soap, tanning skins, rolling cartridges, whatever. And Butch Moore and Dickie Felder went up this year, and they agreed with us that it's a fantastic thing to do. We could not do it down at the Wildlife Refuge because of federal restrictions. We talked to Camp Bob Cooper, and they will let us do it there. In fact, they will even let us bring horses there. And of course, people last night were enthused about bringing the marsh tackies down. So that's another thing for us to do. The one problem we had, and I had made a note here that money is a problem because we were asking each kid to pay $10 to support Camp Bob Cooper, get them lunch and so forth. Last night, that problem was solved in that we were told by Kathy Harvin that the Harvin Foundation will put in $5,000 for us. So, so anyway, that's the close to the Francis Marion Day, the state day recognizing Francis Marion, which is the 26th of February. So this will be the 28th, 29th of February, the 1st of March. 1st of March will be open to the public. So mark your calendars if you remember when you get home. If not, we'll remind you. Now you remember the Richardson family. Any Richardson family descendants here? Okay. And we got one back here. General Richardson came down here, as I understand it, from Virginia as a land surveyor. And back then, if you wanted to get rich quick, it's sort of like car salesman, girl throws the blacks, you know, today, sell cars. Back then, you were a surveyor, and you just surveyed out the land you wanted. And believe it or not, you hear as a kid growing up about the big ranches out in Texas and out west. Can you imagine 250 years ago having 14.5 miles of property along the north side of the Santee River? You know, that's 100 property, and that was what the Richardsons had back then. Anyway, down through, and also General Richard Richardson, you know, went on a relief force, was probably one of our first actions in the Revolution. Went up to relieve 96. By the time they got there, everything was settled, but he stirred up some trouble anyway, and they ended up walking out in a snowstorm, and we know it today as a snow campaign. And when Charleston fell, he was there, he was surrendered. He got sick, they sent him home, and he subsequently died at his plantation near the Richardson Cemetery. What we're really leading up to is through this, from then on until now, the Richardson family has had a waltz that they played, and you know, they're known as dancers through their family down through the years. And it wasn't until a few years ago that Mary Richardson Briggs actually put the music down on paper. Before it was just passed generation to generation by ear. So she put it down, and so tonight, to start off with, we'll have the Richardson Waltz played by one of the descendants, Norvell Walker, and danced by B. Rivers and Tommy Brown. Anyone else wants to stand up and join them? Be our guest. years,